Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching this recording. I just wanted to go over the rest of Chapter 5 that we didn't have a chance to cover. The reason for that is that, of course, we have to move on to Chapter 6 and 7. The reason being is that Chapter 6 and 7 are really important to your team's assignment. So, not that this isn't either, communication is always important, but I just wanted to perhaps put the rest of this in a video so you could watch it, and then we will practice this with chapters 6 and 7 in future classes as well. You also had to study this chapter for your quiz, so hopefully you feel fairly confident. Well, I guess not for your quiz because this is chapter 5, but anyway, hopefully once you've read the chapter and you go through it, you watch this video, it makes more sense. Here's the transcript of that listening skills exercise we finished with on last Wednesday's class, and the point of that exercise was just to show you how much you can pick up in that first go around. And then for some of you, perhaps you played it again and played it again, which is fine. But just to see how well our listening skills are, it goes on and on and on. So sometimes we sort of drift away and don't catch it all, or it just goes too fast for us. Remember as well, we're not into this context as much where we are not actually working in this job with this supervisor. That makes it a bit harder to catch what she is saying. Anyway, there's the answer to it. Verbal communication skills is something that we need to really look at. And when we're looking at that, things like pitch, tone, pace, and volume can affect our verbal communication. So if I'm talking really, really fast, then it's harder to understand me. And if I'm talking really, really slow, sometimes you will drift off because of the fact of I'm talking so slowly. If I'm talking higher pitch versus lower pitch, that will affect that verbal communication as well. Please make sure as well that you use both verbal communication and also formality when you're talking to coworkers and customers, especially with customers. Avoid slang, avoid anything that, avoid just the colloquial things. What I mean by that is the things we might say to our family or best buds. We want to make sure we're using proper English, formal English when we're talking to, especially our customers. Our coworkers, yes and no, but especially our customers. There are some what we call nonverbal communication skills, such as body language, various body motions, gestures, facial expressions. So that's why I say it's so nice when some people turn on their cameras, because I can use the facial expressions to tell if a point is making sense or not making sense. We have to take this with a grain of salt, though, because somebody is standing, for example, with their arms crossed across their body. That in body language means that they're uninterested. They don't want to listen to you. They'd rather be someplace else. But that doesn't necessarily mean it. Some people just like to cross their arms in front of their body because it feels most comfortable. So we always have to take that nonverbal communication with a grain of salt and just think about it and say, is that really the case, or are they just comfortable that way? Also, we have to note that culturally, we have to make sure that symbols mean the same thing across cultures. So, for example, the OK sign that we put up with our fingers in a little circle kind of thing, that might not be something that every culture knows. They have other cultural finger movements and rotations and things like that. So we have to think about that cultural communication as well, and personal space. Some cultures like to have a bit more personal space, some, with people that they do not know, and others. And sometimes it doesn't apply to cultures, just some people want more personal space. So we have to think about that. If we come forward and move forward and they're backing up, that means, whoa, give them space. Written communication skills. Wow, that spans emails, memoranda, letters, reports, social media, and instant messages. So really, we do a lot of written communication, don't we? If we look at organization skills or planning for this written communication, no matter what type of written communication it is, we have to think about who needs to receive the communication first. So if we're sending out a memo or a memorandum about, for example, your AAP or article, who needs to receive the information? Well, it would just be me, nobody else, right? What is the objective of the communication, right? So, why are we sending out? What information is needed before writing the communication? So, do we need to research some information? So, in the case of your assignment, yes, you do, right? And then when will the information be provided or required? So it's really, really important that we think about all these things also, because sometimes we can send out too much memoranda. And so we have to be clear that, first of all, what is the objective? Do we need to send this out? Where should the information be sent? And why is the communication being written? And that's an extremely good question. Why? Why are we doing it? Is it necessary? Yes. Then we go ahead and do it. Adjust the message for your reader. So consider these two options right here. The you approach is always more for if we're reaching out to our customers or our clients or our patients. We have to consider that the you approach may be a better option for the reader's needs, wants, and interests. So, for example, we have decided to approve the loan application for a mortgage on the home at 234 Maple Avenue. Or your loan application has been approved for the mortgage on the new home at 234 Maple Avenue. Notice that the second one is they're waiting to know if they've been approved or not, and using that pronoun really helps to for them to understand more quickly the context of the message. So when we're composing anything, it could be a memo, it could be a report, it could be an email, it could be a letter, we have to think about the opening. Does it identify the subject of the message? So our first, when we're creating something, we create an introduction of some sort. That's the opening where we identify the subject. Do we have these developmental paragraphs which supply the supporting details, the body, right, of that document? And then the closing, okay? Does it summarize the earlier points? Does it require action? Does it build goodwill? And when we organize the message content, it should be organized using the direct, indirect, or persuasive approach. So there are 3 different types of approaches: direct, indirect, or persuasive. The direct approach begins with the reason for the correspondence. So we continue with whatever explanation is necessary so the reader will understand the message. So the direct approach was your bank loan has been approved. Okay, that's the direct approach. And then we, of course, close with a thank you for the action that has been taken and a request that the action be taken by a specific date. So we could say your loan has been approved. Please come to the bank by end of the week to fill out the necessary the extra paperwork that's needed so that we can process the loan, that type of thing. Then there is, so we want to, there's an indirect approach as well. Okay, so what's different from the direct to indirect is we begin with a pleasant something, a neutral opening statement. Okay, so notice it's not beginning with a reason. We're saying, I hope that you are well and blah, 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 blah. So it's a very indirect approach. We review the circumstances and give the negative information, and we close the message on a pleasant and positive note. So here we're giving negative information. So we're starting off with pleasant, then we get into sort of less than pleasant, and then we close the paragraph off. So if the loan approval was not approved, we could begin with something more neutral or pleasant, then say, unfortunately, the loan approval has not been approved because, and explain why, and then close. That's the more indirect approach because we're not beginning directly with the reason. So the indirect approach not beginning with the reason. And then we have the persuasive approach, and this is used a lot in sales. That's why I put the little graphic there. And the persuasive approach is when you want to convince somebody, to do something. Okay. And change a reaction, that type of thing. So we begin with a you approach. We continue by creating interest or desire, and we close by asking the desired action. So what we're saying here is that we say, "Hi, I'd like to tell you about blah, 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 blah. Um, I believe you will find this product to be better than any product out there currently. And these are the reasons, blah, blah, blah." And then, of course, you close the paragraph. Okay, so persuasive approach. And so this could be a sales or marketing type approach, or in any office that you see. So even if you're working in a doctor's office, you might be sending out a letter trying to get them to um, you know. Become a family and use this family option where you pay $150 and you get all of your student notes and everything free of charge. Well, of course, you're going to send out a letter and it's going to be very persuasive, and you're going to tell them how this is beneficial to them. Okay. Editing is one of the most important things that we need to do. If we don't edit things, we can have a lot of problems with grammar and spelling errors. So, for example, a courteous message has a positive tone, saying please and thank you. Okay. So, this is the 5 characteristics of effective communication. So, when we're editing or proofing, we should be able to make sure these are included. A correct message that does not contain errors or imply information that is not accurate. Okay, so we're looking here at spelling, grammar, other editing that you would do, personal editing, and then make sure that you have a concise message and you express the ideas, right? And make sure it's not, you don't repeat yourself, you don't have any elements of it that are unnecessary. A clear message, okay, that can be easily understood. And don't contradict yourself. So state one point and then state another and they contradict each other. Be careful of that. And then a complete message, which contains all the information, including dates, times, location, amounts. So when we're talking about editing, we're talking about these 5 sections, and it's not just spelling and proofing, right? And that's why I say you have to also read your information, make sure that you are following these 5 editing characteristics or plan. Okay, proofreading. So we talked about editing and the 5 editing choices. Then, of course, let's zero in on this proofreading a bit more. You do more than check spelling. You do more than your grammar, punctuation, sentence structure. You also consider the tone of the message. So is the tone coming across as a persuasive tone for a persuasive letter? Direct, indirect, make sure that's correct. Ensure your paragraphs are effective. What we mean by that is that every paragraph is necessary and adds to the document, does not take away from the document. And the reading level matches that of your readers. So we don't want to use scientific terms and things like that to our patients. We want to make sure, or our clients or customers, we want to make sure that we're stating in just an average level. And then proofreading tips. Read aloud. Oh, that works so wonderfully. Read the message aloud. Have the computer read it, and then you read it. Read it backwards. Proofread backwards. So what I mean by that is you can proofread each section backwards. And the really cool thing about that is that you can proofread one time for just punctuation, another time for editing errors, and you can do multi-level proofreading. And of course, take a break and come back to it, because sometimes if we just let it go, we do something else, even for 5 minutes, and come back, we'll catch errors. Print and proofread if you want to print. If you don't want to print, just proofread on the screen. And as proofread areas out of order. So proofread the second paragraph, then maybe the last paragraph, then go up to the first paragraph. Sometimes you find errors that way. And then, as I talked about before, you can proofread many times, and each time you proofread for something else. Are we publishing this? And that's why I have a question mark beside it. So what is the purpose or objective of the message? And notice we've talked about that multiple times. What is the objective? What is the purpose? You have to figure that out first. Who's the target audience? The length of the message is also important. How quickly the information needs to be delivered, and the cost of distribution along with the budget available. So what that means is, do we need to publish it, or can we leave it as an online document? And we take into account all these things as we figure out whether we need to actually go through and publish it in printed form. Now, digital body language. You probably never heard of this before, but with the increase of digital communication, it's really, really important that we figure out our digital body language as well. So here's what we have, and it's very hard sometimes to express ourselves emotionally and through digital words, right? And digital documents. So, first of all, priority, choice of medium. And this is a leadership expert, Erica Dewan, that's talking about these 5 digital body language signals. So if we send something out priority, and you can do that in your email, for example, we're saying do this right away. Okay, it has to be done. Also, if there's a due date on it, it adds to that priority as well. Emotion. What punctuation are we using? What symbols are we using? It might not be emojis, it just might be other symbols. And I mean, you can grab some emotion as well from the way it's written. And then, of course, we talked about respect, which is the timing. Inclusion. Use of the CC and BC fields, reply all, and just making sure that when you're writing this memo or whatever document that you're using inclusive language, okay, and offering people the choice if you can. Sorry. And then identity, professional pictures, signatures, things like that. That helps to build our digital body language. And so there's 4 slides of email guidelines, because email is very, very important. We do it so much nowadays. It's part of our job. Know the purpose of the email. And we keep saying that, right? What is the purpose? What is the objective? Always include that subject line. Okay. Keep the messages short. 1 screen load is best. Edit and proofread carefully. Remember that email messages are not private. Okay. Even if you send an email message to 4 people, those 4 people could send it to other people. So be careful what you send. Do not send or forward junk mail or spam. Okay, those things that come up, click here to do this or do that, don't send that on. My mother-in-law sends on everything, including these little funny things, and it's just spam. I just have to send it to junk mail. Ensure the message and attachment are forwarded together, okay, and use appropriate signature line. Be polite, and that comes through in your reading. So, in your writing. So, if you're not supposed to be direct in a documentation, don't be direct. Okay, just be polite. Know the emoticons can be perceived as casual interactions. So it depends on the environment. So, for example, at Seneca, I would send maybe an emoticon to my fellow coworkers, but not to my bosses, for example. So it depends on the environment you're working in. You'll quickly get to know that. Include standard text in your closing. Assign high priority to the message only if it's needed. So don't keep sending your emails high priority if they're not. Assume that a message you sent is permanent, and that goes along with the fact that, just because you send it to 4 people doesn't mean only those 4 people get it. So think carefully when you write the email and reread it before you hit send. Reread it for proofreading and editing, but also don't send an email when you're angry because you may regret it. Okay? You can't take it back. Do not use different fonts, colors, clip arts, and other graphics unless for a specific purpose. Sometimes we may be sending a logo through or something like that, but that's typically attached to the email, not within the email. But other than that, don't use it. Do not key in uppercase, please, because that connotates you're angry and you're shouting. Avoid sending messages when you are angry, as we talked about before with the last slide. And before you reply to an email, ask yourself whether you really need to reply. And that's so important because I do that all the time. I'm ready to reply, and then I go, why am I replying? I really don't need to. It's done. So just to think about that, because less email that we need to answer is better. If it's just, you can always add a thumbs up to a letter, to an email, and that may connotate that you read it. If another person needs to know about the information contained in an email, send a copy to that person. And just to let you know, if you send BCC to a blind copy someone, sometimes you can do a reply all and include the blind copy person. So be careful if you're doing a BC, it might not be totally blind, and that other people might not figure it out when they do a reply all. If you send a message in haste and then realize you should not have, you can use the unsend option if it's available. It's not available through Seneca. If it's available, but sometimes it'll still, messages move really, really quickly. So don't rely on this unsend, okay? And answer your email properly. Instant messaging best practices is know and follow IM policies. So whatever your doctor's office or client or customer, whatever they say, you follow the policy about instant messaging, what they require you to do. Be aware of IM statuses, whether you're away or whether you're busy, because people might think you might have set it to away and it still says away, and people think, well, she's still away. So make sure you change that. Be careful what you say, okay? Keep confidential information confidential. Don't share anything because it can be then shared with other people, shared with other people, and then the whole world knows. Consider your message, keep it brief, be professional, use abbreviations sparingly, use good grammar, punctuation, and spelling, okay? And do not use humor or sarcasm, and be positive. In memoranda guidelines, I use the first name or initial followed by the name, or the full name is fine. You can use the job title for the from, and this is stuff you've learned from DPW. Don't add Mr. and Mr., when you're using the from or the to. Just, follow your DPW 111 guidelines. So if you're sending a memorandum toward more than one individual, list the individuals in alphabetical order or by hierarchical order. And you can see here we have M before R before W in the last name. So we're using alphabetical. And again, as to this format or setup, you already know from DPW 111, but look at your guidebook. And then if you're sending a memo to a group like all employees, use the generic classifications. You can say United Way fundraising team, marketing department, office employees, all employees, see distribution list below, that type of thing. But then you do have to include that distribution list at the end of your memo after your notations. Social media. Okay, so businesses more and more are using social media as a platform for them to be recognized, to be seen, to know what their products are, to sell products. And there's probably every organization you work for will have a social media policy, and its rules and guidelines regarding how employees may use social media for marketing, promoting events, gathering customer feedback and other business uses, and as well You may consider your personal use of social media and how that would look for your company organization, and take that into consideration as well. Letters represent the company, so a well-written letter, proofing, editing. As administrative professionals, we assist with writing effective letters and writing letters independently. So we have to make sure that we're writing a really good letter and editing and proofreading it, and ensure that it can be mailed. The business report process, and some of you are doing this even for your AAP project, in that you're researching, right? You plan, you compose, and that's where, instead of composing a report, you guys are composing a memo, but that first 3 steps are the same no matter what document you're using. And then actually all of the steps, because then you edit it, proofread, and publish. So whether it's a business report, a memo, a letter, all of these steps are very, very important. And for research for reports, you can, there are 2 types of research that you can do. One is primary and one is secondary. So primary research are things like surveys and observations and data analysis. So if you were looking at, if you went to, for example, a doctor's office, and you wanted to see how they handle customers within a peak period kind of a thing, and do a survey on that, or use your observations. That's primary research. Secondary research is using the internet, using books, using periodicals, so using resources. Formats for reports, well, first of all, you would have an executive summary, followed by a title page, followed by a table of contents, followed by a manuscript style, so MLA, APA, paragraph formatting, footnotes, endnotes, internal citations, and bibliography. So that's the standard way that you would write a report. Bibliography, we will tend to use MLA. For MLA, Works Cited. APA, you see references a lot, so we don't see bibliography as much, but it is still available to use. And then, of course, any appendices that you have with charts or notes on a particular part of the report, or research, your surveys, if you did them, would be in the appendix. I'm going to skip these 2 communication exercises, and we'll come back to them at some point. I'm going to put them in the week 5 folder so that it's easy for us to go back. Okay, there's 2 communication cases. And then for the summary, we just stated, to be effective in the workplace, you must be an effective communicator. Effective communication means you process and exchange ideas. They're originating from the person originating the communication and the person receiving the communication. So very important for those 2 people to be involved in active listening. We talked about communication barriers and how to improve communication to overcome both internal and external barriers. We then talked about what we need to know as far as our 4 active listening skills to be that effective verbal communicator, and those 4 skills being informative listening, evaluative listening, emphatic listening, sorry, I get that wrong every time, and reflective listening. And if you don't remember what we talked about, you can go back to the PowerPoint. Writing is a process that involves planning, composing, editing, proofreading, and publishing, and each stage, of course, is important. Administrative assistants are expected to write memos and letters for the manager's signature. You might have a stamp with their signature. You may have to format them, distribute them. You may have to write them, okay, and help with research. And we didn't do the role play. We don't have time for it, but it is in the week 5 folder. And then, of course, just remember the quiz 1 we've already done. Okay, you guys finished that. Remember your team-based group assignment. We'll talk more of that in class this week. And that's it. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in class next. Have a great day. Bye.